My family drama can be summed up in 2 words: my mother. And trust me, that's all you need to know to brace yourself for this story. I was 13 when this all went down. My mom and I were living in a single rented room in some random guy's house out in the desert. My older sister had already bailed, moved in with friends at 16. So it was just me and my mother. She was a single mom, an addict, an alcoholic, and had a revolving door of boyfriends. Stability? Never heard of it. I don't even remember why we moved into that house. One day, she just told me to pack my stuff. And that was that. Most of our things were shoved into storage, and suddenly, I was sharing a tiny, cluttered room with my mom in some guy's house. I didn't know him. I think his name was Mike. But honestly, I could be making that up. We had been there for maybe a week when it happened. I came home one afternoon to find my mom lying on the couch in our little room. That wasn't unusual, but something about the way she was laying there didn't sit right with me. Her breathing was shallow. I called her name. Nothing. I shook her arm. She mumbled something I couldn't understand, then went completely limp again. Panic set in. I tried over and over to wake her up, but she was out of it. Her skin was clammy. I didn't know what was happening. Was it an overdose? A stroke? Some kind of medical emergency? I had no clue. I needed to call 911. But here's the thing. We didn't have a phone in our room. The only phone was in the living room. And when I went out there, Mike was already on it. I told him I needed to call an ambulance. My mum was sick. It was an emergency. He ignored me. I asked again. He turned away from me, still talking. I asked again, louder this time. And then he got annoyed. He snapped at me, told me to wait, that he was on an important call. I couldn't wait. So I ran. I took off on foot, barefoot, sprinting down the road toward the nearest grocery store. I didn't even think about how far it was. I just knew I needed a phone. It was probably several city blocks, but it felt like miles. By the time I got there, I was out of breath, shaking, barely able to think straight. I found the payphone, dug some change out of my pocket, and dialed 911. And that's when I realized I had no idea what the address was. I completely blanked. I was so panicked that my mind just shut down. I couldn't remember the street name, the house number, nothing. So instead, I called one of my mom's friends. She told me to stay put. She'd call an ambulance and then come get me. I sat outside that grocery store, trying to keep from falling apart. I didn't know what was going to happen. I didn't know if my mom was dying. By the time my mom's friend showed up, the ambulance had already come and taken my mom to the hospital. I went with her to her house, figuring my mom would come get me once she got out of the hospital. She didn't. Days passed, then a week, then another week. No word from my mom. Her friend eventually told me I couldn't stay there anymore. She had done what she could, but she had her own life, her own responsibilities. I called my sister. She was staying with her friend's family, and I asked if I could crash there. Her friend's mom said no. She already had her own kids, plus my sister. There wasn't space for me. My sister ended up calling our aunt and uncle. I hadn't seen them in over a year, probably because of my mom's usual dramatics, but they agreed to take me in. And just like that, I moved in with them, with nothing but a duffel bag and the clothes on my back. A few days later, they sat me down and told me they wanted to adopt me. And honestly, I said yes. I didn't know what else to do. It wasn't like my mom was around. And then, about a month later, she showed up. I was in my cousin's room when I heard her voice, screaming at my uncle in the other room. It was chaos, doors slamming, yelling. My mom was furious. Then she stormed into the room, looked me dead in the eyes, and said, "Pack your stuff, we're leaving." I froze. I didn't know what to do. Then I ran outside. I told her I wanted to stay, that if she got a job, got a place to live, I'd come back. In my 13-year-old brain, that seemed like a reasonable plan. That's when the real theatrics started. She accused me of abandoning her, made herself the victim, told me I had betrayed her. She pulled the "I've never been good enough for you" card. Then she dropped the bomb. "Come with me now, or never see me again." I really thought she was bluffing. I told her I was staying, and she left. I didn't hear from her for years. Then, when I was 15, she sent me a letter, 4 pages long, about how she forgave me for abandoning her. I tore it up and threw it away. And the drama? Oh, it didn't stop there. But that's a story for another day. If you like this story and want to hear more wild family drama, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Trust me, I have plenty.